you who would like to do so to turn on their cameras for a group screenshot, a quick group screenshot, so that we can share later on with our social media followers. So whoever wants to do that, please feel free to turn on your cameras, and my colleague Angela will take a screenshot of us.
Okay, so I'm taking the screenshot now. Okay, perfect.
Great, thank you. And so before we dive into the topic of today, let me take a moment to introduce you to the Clementines Initiative, the driving force behind this discussion. The Clementines Project is all about empowering young people to take meaningful action against climate change. By equipping youth workers with the right tools, knowledge, and strategies, the project ensures that young voices are not only heard, but also shape climate policies across Europe. Over the course of this series, we've explored key aspects of youth engagement in climate advocacy, and today, in our final session, we'll bring that all together. Moving on, I'd like to introduce you our guest speaker for today's webinar, Thanos Andritsos. Thanos has over 15 years of experience in studies and projects related to spatial planning, sustainable urban development, integrated territorial investments, urban planning, legislation, and participatory planning in Greece, the European Union, and the Middle East. He's a founding member of Common Space, an interdisciplinary firm focusing on spatial planning, social and environmental research, and Participatory Lab, a community dedicated to promoting participatory planning and governance to help cities adapt to climate change. So welcome, Thanos, and thank you for being with us. And let me start with our first question of the day. Can you briefly introduce us to the concept of participatory planning and budgeting, and why is it essential for sustainable urban development and climate action?
Thank you very much, Sophia, and thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy for being here today. I hope that you can hear me clearly and see me. Very, very briefly, as Sophia already presented, one of the main fields of interest of our team is participatory planning, including different levels of actual planning, but also policy making, budgeting, like budgeting, or etc. It is a very, a broad. The answer could be very broad, but the two main issues that I would like to raise in that, it would be that, first of all, participatory planning in general and participatory, the process of participation in policy making and planning is very crucial for two reasons mainly. The first is that for the planning, the policy making to be good, effective, and just, it should include the participation of people, not only through the elections or other kinds of formal representation, but also through a constant process of participation, co-production of policies, co-design, and in general, democratic governance. The second aspect that I would like to raise is that the planning itself is becoming better like that. It's not only that it is important for social inclusion, for democratic governance, and climate justice, but also for the improvement of the planning itself. From my side, I am an urban planner and architect. The first introduction in participatory planning came through our need to experiment more on how we are doing our job, how we plan the cities or some buildings or policies, and how we can improve the way that we are doing it, but also how can we produce plans, policies, or whatever that are really effective, really addressing the needs of the people, and I don't know, somehow deal with the issues that the society itself is raising and is facing. And I just want to mention that participatory planning doesn't erase the role of the policymaker or the designer or the architect or the urban planner or whatever field it is. But it actually put the process of design into the judgment, but also the co-creative process of the people, of the users of each, or of the specific target group that you might want to include. Just a very short question regarding participatory budgeting, which is a specific part of it, and unfortunately it is something that in Greece it's not that established. Participatory budgeting is actually creating methods and introducing methods for public participation into the process of how deciding how to allocate the funds, mainly in municipal level. It is the most examples of participatory planning are coming from the field of local governance, which could have a lot of different applications. But I would say that the most important part of participatory budgeting and also participatory planning in general is to include the citizens or the target group not only through a final phase of a consultation or whatever, but also from the beginning, from the how to identify the needs, how to identify the problems, how to choose the main the first goals of a plan, and then eventually how to to move on to the decision making itself.
Thank you, Thanos, for this first introduction, this first view into the topic. And also, given your long experience, I would like to ask you to share with us some successful examples of youth-led, in this case, participatory planning or budgeting on the topic of climate in Greece or in Europe. And if you can also share with us what made them, according to you, effective.
Thank you very much also for making this question. First of all, in terms of participatory budgeting, the examples, the cases from Greece, we have written a very relevant study 2 or 3 years ago. The cases from Greece are quite rare. They are not. They exist and they are quite successful. But they showed that this road could be taken, but I don't think that they have a very special interest of the youth population. And in general, I think that even some successful examples of participatory budgeting or planning processes, they rarely include the youth population as it could be. So I would not choose one of these examples, but I would choose 2 examples from our experience, mainly in urban planning and design and participation, but very relevant to climate change and adaptation of cities to climate change, which is one of the most important issues of these days, and especially because participatory planning and generally the participatory processes, they are very, very crucial for the adaptation and mitigation strategies of the cities, because they are not only just policies that they should be implemented, I don't know, to minimize the emissions or whatever, which are of course important. It is also how the people, the society, and the city as a whole can adapt to the climate change, which in many cases has impacts that are we will face them even if we stop. I don't know. Right now, if we do much better in other issues like I don't know how the industry is or what will happen with fossil fuel, there are actual impacts that are happening right now, which should be tackled somehow. And in order for the society to be able to deal with these issues, it should be a participatory process and to be somehow involved with that. But the only two examples that I would like to highlight, the first is a very long experience that we have from participatory design of schoolyards. This is a very specific example. It's a quite common. I wouldn't say common, but it's not that rare. And we right now are starting a project, but we have done a lot in the past. We are now starting a project in 10 schools in the city of Ioannina, and we have already completed, I don't know, dozens of programs for participatory design of school years, and with a special focus on nature-based solutions, on the idea of climate shelter, that you can use the schoolyard as an open space for the whole neighborhood, not only for the school society, that could somehow deal with especially the phenomenon of the urban heat island effect. So this kind of processes shows that especially the participatory design of school years is a very easy process. It could easily be implemented in the school program, in a way. And from our experience in more than 20 or 30 schools in Greece, the results are great. A second case, which, it's not that that impactful maybe, and not that common, is during a public consultation phase of the Sustainable Urban Development Plan of the city of Trikala some years ago. We had a specific proposal coming from a team of youth people proposing the creation of a skate park close to a local park. Even though this, it was accepted and created, even though this, maybe the municipality could anyway, without their proposal, it could be implemented anyway, but it shows that even this kind of formal procedures, that in most of the cases, they are being implemented in a way that very, very few people actually participate. Because they are obligatory from the European Union, but most of the municipalities and the public authorities, they are doing it in a way, a very typical, a very, I don't know, basically just to do it in order to fill the blank for doing a public consultation. This was a case which, it was not a great example, but it was a specific example that because it happened, it gave the opportunity to a group of young people to propose their idea and to be actually implemented. So I think it is also a good example.
Thank you. And it's quite interesting what you mentioned as the lack of participation, especially of young people. It's also very interesting and useful to us and to our work. And let me continue with our next question. What are the main barriers preventing participatory climate governance from becoming mainstream in urban planning and policy making? Again, according to you and your experience so far.
Yeah, in a way, I already mentioned some of them, because what is happening is that if you ask most of the policymakers and the public authorities, they would say that they would like to do participatory processes, but first of all, it's very difficult, it's time consuming, and all these things, which is, in my opinion, it's not true. It's far more time consuming. The delays and the bureaucracy of public processes, they are far more time consuming than anything else that you can see. If you actually implement participatory methods. But the most important part is that they would reply, and I have done a research myself in that most of these people, then it's not their fault. I'm not blaming them, obviously. They would say that the people are not interested. That we sent some invitations, it's not easy, it's not, they are not interested, they didn't came, nobody answered this, I don't know, online questionnaire or whatever. My experience is very different. First of all, I mean, I have seen a lot of public participation processes that they are very successful. But apart from that, I think that most of the time, at least in Greece, I cannot say in international level. As I already told you, they are not actually processes that they actually give the strength, the power, the authority, the information needed for the people to be actually interested. So most of the people that they actually participate in this kind of consultations, they are either already quite powerful, they represent some specific groups that they already have a voice in the discussion, and I mean, I'm not saying that it's not good. I mean, in a way, they don't have the right. Of course, they have the right, but they are already established constitutions that they want to, I mean, to put their agenda on something. And the majority of the population, and especially the young people, they don't obviously participate because, first of all, they are not that well informed, and also they don't think that these procedures are actually impactful, meaningful, etc. So from the one side, I think that this question is it's twofold. From the one side, the question is, what are the barriers from the perspective of the public authorities and the government and the local government to actually promote these processes, which in my opinion, they don't exist because a good implementation of participatory methods could be really easy and really applicable. On the other part of this question is from the perspective of the young population and the society, why they don't participate, or how they would like to, this barrier of participation in planning and policy making to be taken away. And I think that this needs a specific will from the political authority to actually give power to this kind of consultation and participation procedures so that they are actually meaningful. That does not mean that the young population, the youth, isn't participating in other kinds of participation, in social movements or in through online processes or whatever. But you actually need to create better structured and actually meaningful processes in order for the young people, especially the young generations, to participate.
I see, and thank you. And I think it reflects what you described might reflect Greece very well, but also some other of the countries that we're collaborating with for the specific project. You've already kind of answered that, but briefly, you don't need to take long to answer. Do you think, on the positive side, let's say that these processes are really implemented and followed, do you think these participatory methods could help bridge the gap between young people and decision makers? Because you've already mentioned that there is also this gap between them, and there's also lack of maybe not confidence, but also they cannot feel they rely to them. They don't feel they can trust them, like the youth towards the decision makers and the policy makers. Do you think the participatory method could help improve that?
Yes and no. I mean, in the same time. On the one hand, of course, I believe that, and I think that there are methods and experts. I mean, there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of methodologies. This is not even that new. I mean, for decades, there have been cases of implementation all around the world. I totally believe that there are tools and methods very easy to for application that could easily improve. I cannot say that it will solve all the problems, of course, but it could improve and strengthen the relationship between, any kind of group, but also specifically youth and policymakers. And also, I think that in many cases, it would not be that difficult or challenging as we might imagine, especially in some cases. Okay, it's not easy to solve all the problems, but there are some problems or some issues that could be a little improved. For example, a typical issue that we face when we are going for something related to urban design or the neighborhood design or something else is that the typical problem that you want to do a pedestrian road or you want to do a park, and the others want to have parking, and where will the park? This is the typical. I mean, I have here heard about this. I have heard this answer, I mean, millions of times during the last 15 years. From our experience, whenever we did this kind of projects, they came one or two or three or four, mainly men in their 50s, saying this argument, and all the rest of the people participating in that, either from the school society or from the neighborhood or whatever, they totally disagree, and they much more, I mean, more prefer to do something else. So this was solved in a way. I mean, and it was not that difficult. And okay, obviously it didn't solve the issue of mobility or in a neighborhood in general, but it created a path. On the other hand, I should say that participatory planning and participatory processes, even in climate-related issues, and especially in climate-related issues, they cannot solve the conflicts. They cannot solve. I mean, they cannot solve eliminate the differences, the inequalities, the much more difficult issues to deal with, like war or I don't know, social inequalities or migration or this kind of issues. They can actually discuss it in a more democratic and socially just way, but obviously they cannot. It's not a tool to actually gain, some kind of approval in the policy that is being implemented without actual social change. So I couldn't say that it would, like that. It will erase the problems. It will create a happy society that will not deal with, they will not face the huge issues, even related to climate change and climate crisis of these years. But yes, I believe it would improve the governance and the implementation of climate policies.
Thank you. Thank you again for your insights. And now, since we are mostly talking about youth and youth workers, I'd like to ask your opinion on what strategies can youth workers and civil society organizations in general adopt to ensure that young youth participation leads to tangible policy changes. Since the situation is already difficult, what can they do to help empower, strengthen youth to take action or participate more?
I think there are some areas where, the role of youth workers and civil society organizations might be very impactful. First of all, I think that it is important to have a voice in climate and urban related issues that are, we are facing every day. Because it is important to understand that, of course, the problem of climate crisis is not, it's a global problem. It has a lot of reasons, and some of them it's very difficult to deal with. But there are also some other issues that are quite easier to deal with. Whenever where a local municipality is building a park, whenever something, the state or other authorities, they cannot protect a local, I don't know, wetland, or whenever you see that the problem of walking, the problem of green corridors, the problem of urban heat is huge. These are issues very much related to climate crisis, which in a way, I mean, at least a part of them could be solved at a local level. And I believe that the role of this kind of organizations is very crucial. And I think that the strategies that they could use are also, there is a variety. From campaigning and sharing information and promoting the knowledge about these issues, which is in many ways the societies are becoming more and more, I don't know, hesitant and skeptical, directly because of the problematic implementation of participatory processes and climate policies, but also they could eventually improve their skills and methods in order to actually implement programs of participatory planning or participatory budgeting. Even if they don't have the authority, this is one of the main problems in participatory planning, but that you cannot easily participatory plan, plan, I don't know, a local square or something if you don't have the authority to do that. It's not only, it's not only campaigning, it's not only, policy suggestion, it has somehow, but I believe that they could increase the pressure to the local and central governments and other policy making institutions, so that eventually this kind of processes are being more and more internal and stable as parts of policy making. And the last thing that I would like to say is that it is important to actually integrate this kind of tools and methodologies and strategies into the tools that they are actually using, to implement their scope of work.
Thank you. And I hope for the youth workers and civil society organization representatives who are with us, this is a good food for thought, also to compare with their local context or similarities and difficulties, similarities and differences they might face locally. And let me ask a final question. Looking into the future, let's say, how do you see the future of participatory planning evolving in the face of climate change? And what role will youth play in shaping this future? Just a guess from your side, let's say.
Yes. Thank you. Just, very, very briefly, because I already spoke a lot from what I understand. Sorry about that. I think that, I could be a little optimistic in some issues, in some points. For example, in an extent, there, even though the things are difficult, I can see that more and more this kind of debates and this kind of tools or whatever, they start being somehow integrated into policy making, especially in European projects or other kind of creation of strategies and climate related policies. For me, the most important threat is coming from the general landscape, not from the policy making itself. I believe that generally, even though it is, I couldn't say that it is very easy, especially in Greece. I am very slightly optimistic that it will be very easy to start implementing these things into the core and the everyday and the business as usual, let's say, of local and central government. But I have a slight optimistic about that things are slightly changed. The reason why I'm not in general optimistic is that there are some large processes which are coming from the increase of social inequalities and exclusions, from the huge social problems, from the war, from the impacts of climate change in general, from the way that every year huge issues like, for example, fossil fuel or other things that are, they were strategies for many years, the transition to green energy, they are shifted in a way in one day because of the global issues. So I'm afraid that climate policy, it would be very difficult to be much more effective and participatory if the societies are becoming more and more unjust and I don't know, facing this kind of social environmental inequalities. So yes, both optimistic and pessimistic, as probably everyone these days. Thank you very much.
And it's the ugly truth, to be honest. Thank you. This was our last question, so I'd like to thank Thanos again, and thanks all of you for joining. Again, special thanks to Thanos for this insightful and engaging discussion. We truly appreciate your time and your expertise. And since this is the final session of our Strengthening Democratic Participation for Climate Action webinar series, we'd like to extend our gratitude to everyone who has followed along. While these sessions may be coming to an end, we hope the knowledge shared will inspire future reflection and action on youth participation in climate policy. Thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you again in other events or webinars or other kinds of occasions. And good luck with your efforts with your youth locally on the ground. Thank you, and have a nice evening, everyone.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.